Welcome back. My guest today is simply brilliant. We met on a live podcast recording. I did not know her story. And every time we meet, I learn more about her, and I'm more and more impressed, honestly. Her story, you would not imagine when you meet her, because when you meet her, you see this author and speaker and, who studied nutrition and physical fitness, and who's an athlete in many ways. And, just like the people that we interact with, the brilliant people we interact with in the modern world. But my guest, Lurata Lyon, grew up in the former Yugoslavia during the period of ethnic cleansing. And her story started there. I think you can imagine how it turned, but you'd be wrong. As much as you can imagine how far it went and what she went through, you'd be missing out on some of the enormous challenges that Lurata has faced. Only to be here with us today with a beautiful smile, fabulous energy, to remind us, I think, for today's podcast, of two things. That one is that you can overcome anything, absolutely anything. And the second, and I'm sad to bring that to your attention, is that our world is unjust, and we should not allow the injustice. And I think there is a lot of similarities between Lurata's stories and Lurata's story and I think there is a lot of similarity between Lurata's story and what's happening in our world today. I think everyone needs to hear it firsthand so that you understand what you're letting happen in our world is not acceptable. I have to say, it is beyond an honor to be in her presence. I don't think you will feel what I feel, because here is someone who has gone through hell, truly, and come back like an angel. Lurata Lyon. You don't know how much I've been waiting to have this conversation, do you?
Mario, thank you so much for having me here. Actually, I have to admit and confess, which I have already, I have felt for the last few weeks since we booked this podcast, I have felt like a kid.
Oh, that's good.
I have felt like a kid because I think you radiate such an amazing energy, and I'm about to cry because your energy reminds me of my dad.
I get that quite a lot. I don't like when I get that from lovely women, but yes, I get that quite a lot now.
No, but you would really appreciate this, because not in a sense as a father figure, but the groundedness that you bring to people, that you too have been through so much, yet you remain so humble, and you have achieved so much and you remain humble. And I feel the love from you, and you don't have to say anything. The energy you radiate. From the moment I've met you, I felt like I've always known you, and I'm sure everybody would agree with me that meets you. You make people feel at ease. Your energy has taken me back so many times to my sort of presence around my dad, and how he really tried to keep us safe, and the way he stayed very grounded when everything seemed like it was going to hell. And this is what I mean with your energy, and you remind me of my dad, because all my life, since I have left my mum and dad, since we have been separated, I have always longed and searched for similar energy to have in my life, whether he's a friend, whether he's a mentor, whether he's a partner, whatever it might be. And it's not often I find, so when I do, I really cherish it. And I think universe, in my case God, has sent us our way, because I think we can share some great lessons today. So thanks for having me.
I'm humbled. I'm really grateful, and I honestly would not. This is probably the best I can ever expect to hear. I get people saying, you opened my eyes, and you taught me something, and it's lovely and wonderful. I appreciate that, but I think the first time we met was when I was being interviewed on a live podcast, and I hugged you before I even knew your name. And I don't know if you believe in this. You mentioned God, but I tend to believe that there is an underlying connection between us humans, that we're all coming from the same source. And when we all come from the same source, we're all one in a way at the end of the day. I think that's true for everyone, including our enemies. But the problem is that many of us have disconnected from that link, if you want, from that reality, from the realization that we are one and the same. But when you meet someone who, sadly, I think, tough times refine us. Tough times polish us like gold, if you know what I mean. And when you meet someone who has gone through what you've gone through, I think you have understood life, and so you radiate. It is very difficult not to hug you. It is the truth. And it's funny because remember that when we met the first time, we said that we were going to have this conversation 2 weeks later. And then, it's been a very tough year for me in general. I have gone through quite a bit, actually. Still I'm going through quite a bit. And so we sort of disconnected somehow. And remember, we met so randomly. I was having dinner with friends, and for some reason the location was changed, and then right before we leave the dinner, I go like, okay, I'll go to the boys' room for a minute, and then there you are sitting in a table on the way there, like you couldn't miss each other, and that's what activated this again. If I may ask you about that protection, the feeling that your dad wanted to keep you safe. For many reasons, I maybe not to take the story to my side, but it feels today that we rarely ever get someone we feel safe around. Why do you think that is?
I always give people the benefit of the doubt when I meet, because you just never know. I believe, I always say this towards the end of my speeches as well, I believe that as children, we are all born innocent. And if you learn to see people's purity that they are born with, you will always see good in everyone. And I always see good in everyone. I don't exclude anyone, gender, color, ethnicity, religion. I never exclude. And then over time, things happen and people let us down, not because it could be circumstances, could be anything. Initially, I used to find it really hard to deal with that because I thought, I gave you my all. How could you break my trust like this? Why can't you just be transparent, being in a relationship, in a friendship, at work, or whatever it might be? Because I want everybody to really think deep now to the times when they felt like they were let down. And then I realized that, okay, fine, that's fine, because the way people are towards us is never really is a reflection of us. If you remain to your standards of being good, respectful, with consistency, for me, consistency is a very big thing, then you have no doubt to doubt yourself. You have no reason to doubt yourself. When people let you down, you see it as a reflection of them. So I have learned greatly to let go. And so therefore, because I am so quick at just letting go, not chasing anything, in fact, just trying to attract the right people into my life, I now detach myself quite quickly from something that I know is no longer going to serve me. Not in a way that I'm trying to use people, but if a person decided to treat me a certain way or decided to walk away from me, I accept it. As painful as it is, the same as we accept death. We can't change nature. It is what it is. So I let it go. Some people don't understand why I'm so quick at doing so, because I always want to create room for people at all genders, from all walks of lives that are meant to be in my life, to be able to stay there, because I want to create that gap, that space. So finding a connection these days has become very superficial. I go really deep. The moment I see someone, I feel them. And I said, when I walked in today down here at the podcast, the guy that set us up, I said to him straight away, you were not here. I said, the moment I saw you, I felt you. When I shook your hand, I already knew. I just know straight away. I don't judge, but people go through different times of healing, and it takes some people longer or maybe never to get to the point. And I'm not saying they don't deserve my attention. It's just that I have to be very selective who comes into my life. But we don't have a connection because we are too focused. There is, how many times one person will wake up in the morning and treat themselves with respect that they would treat a friend? Why do you think they don't do that sometimes? Or maybe never. Because if you treated other people badly, nobody wants to be in your life. So what makes you think treating yourself with disrespect or without the love that you deserve every morning, the mantra, you are great, you deserve this, you are amazing, thank you. Say to yourself, thank you, because ultimately it's two of you, it's your body and your soul, so you got to thank yourself. That's why people are unable to make these deep connections, because they don't have a connection. They haven't connected fully with themselves. They're chasing their tail. I've worked with some people that are really successful, and you'd be surprised. People like myself would think that somebody that's so successful, and I used to think they have it all sorted out. I mean, they are so happy, surely, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to work with them, and you start understanding their level way of the way they think. They really are not a priority. They're not a priority at all to themselves. They don't even acknowledge themselves. In order for them to feel the love for themselves, they go buy the next car, the next Rolex watch, or the next girlfriend, or whatever that is for them that brings them that excitement. But deep down, it's about stripping everything off and really focusing on yourself. Are you really happy with yourself, the person that you are, the way you treat yourself? How positively do you talk to yourself? I think that's what's missing in this world. Everybody's trying to look good. Everybody's trying to put this, and I do it myself on Instagram. So, it looks good, but I know that when people meet me, they're going to see exactly the same. I'm good. I'm good to myself. I'm kind to myself. So I lead by example. If my Instagram look glitz and glam in terms of I'm looking good, let's just say just like looking made up, when you see me, I might not have makeup, but you will see me as made up because I constantly stay in a level of energy of positivity. I don't allow anyone to disrupt my peace.
This is almost the exact opposite of what life threw at you. Like at a very young age, life takes you through a challenge that one would make you doubt everyone, never forgive anyone, and actually not feel positive at all. I don't know if I know you wrote it very clearly in Unbroken, in your beautiful book, by the way, which I think everyone should read. We were joking before you guys came and we started filming that I have Lurata's book on my bed, which actually is. I mean, I only meant that it was there for me to take it with me coming to the studio, but I think the cover truly and honestly inspires me. I mean, it's the image of her two lives, if you want. I don't know if you're willing to share a little bit, as much as your heart is willing to, about that story, about how a child of innocence is subjected to the worst of humanity.
Well, of course I'd love to share it. I mean, I know for a fact it's going to inspire someone to relook at their obstacles in a different way and potentially give them some nuggets on how to go about overcoming those obstacles. But most of all, sometimes even my own book reminds me to be grateful for what I have, the freedom that I've got, everything that has been gifted to me or I worked hard for example. But I'm going to take you all on a journey. I'm the only child, and I was brought up in former Yugoslavia by educated parents. I mean, when I say that, I think everybody is educated because life teaches you lessons. I've learned that now. I don't have university diploma, but I think life has taught me a lot. And so my dad was a doctor and my mom professor of languages. And they were huge activists in human rights. So when there was injustice in former Yugoslavia about different ethnicities, they would stand by any ethnicity for human rights, to the point where they struggled to find jobs because they were sort of black marked as these people are not good. They are always protesting. So, yeah, I grew up in a Muslim family. It wasn't strict to the point that we see it in certain cultures or countries, but by all means, Muslim, we believed in God and practicing good and doing good, not stealing, not doing certain things, which it all served me well. And then war broke up. We were living in this village. Majority, if not all, were Muslims. And one day we got marched to the sort of fold of the mountain, the entire village, more than 100,000 of people, children, elderly, disabled people. And we were to be massacred. So the Serbian army, our very own army, decided to do a massacre like they have done in Bosnia. And because we had war amongst each other. It was a civil war. It wasn't even like we see it now, different countries. We were fighting each other. So we couldn't even escape. We were in a frying pan and you couldn't leave the country. And my uncle, that was a farmer, was really wealthy and decided to bribe the army to save the village. He said, look, I mean, it's a long story, but just sort of going to skip to get to what happens next. He bribed the army, said, if you save the town, I'll give you all my wealth. And surely that worked after a lot of debating and pushing around. He managed to bribe the army. He had dug out of his garden with my mum. Actually, she went to help him. There's loads of gold. I didn't see it. It had gone already with the army by the time we returned to our village. But my mum was telling us there was lots of gold, lots of cash, and it was all around his garden. And because he didn't trust the government and the banks, he decided to keep wealth in a very old-fashioned way. And after that, the army then decided to come and rape women and young girls. So my dad was fearing of watching me being raped. He came home one day, which quite soon after that episode, and he said, Lurata, you need to escape. I'm like, Dad, as long as Mum comes with me, then I'm willing to go anywhere. He's like, she's welcome. And my mum said, no, I'll stay with your dad. He said, if you cross the mountain, it will lead you to Kosovo. It's only you, and you're not going to be seen so much. Whereas if we went collectively, it would draw a lot of attention because we were not supposed to leave Serbia. The borders were shut. And you might ask, why Kosovo? Kosovo was already with the peacekeepers, United Nations, so they were keeping the peace. The bombing had stopped. NATO is on the ground, so it was considered the next best kind of place to be as safety goes. I didn't speak back to my dad. I completely took that on board. I said my goodbyes and I left. I marched through that mountain.
How old were you?
I was 17. Yeah, so I was still in my teens. Marched through the mountains, scared of the wolves, and we had wild animals in the mountains. But I managed to get to the other side within hours of trekking constantly. And when I reached the other side, I got onto the bus. And now, something to remember, I speak Serbian fluently, and because I was born and raised in Serbia, but I also speak Albanian fluently because my neighbors and the schools were in Albanian too. So when I reached the other side, I immediately switched to speaking Albanian to the locals, saying, how do I get to the main city, like Pristina, which is the capital now? They showed me the way through a few different buses, and I managed to get to the main city. And the idea was that my dad said, when you get to the main city, you go to the Red Cross for shelter. And I didn't know what Red Cross meant. I was so naive. I was a village girl, but very trendy. And I was doing my own little fashion thing. And so in the streets of Kosovo, it was dark and it was curfew hours. So you really shouldn't have been on the road basically after certain hours. And I saw this bar, like noise I was hearing. I decided to walk into this bar to literally get some water and ask for help, because that was the only life I heard. Everything else was like a ghost city. And took some water. I looked around. To my surprise, everybody there was with unusual uniform that I'd never seen before. They were United Nations from all sorts of different countries that were having a drink and just talking amongst each other. I took the water and I went outside, and I literally collapsed just outside of the door thinking, what do I do now? These are all strangers. They are foreigners. I don't know what to do. And I was actually feeling sorry for myself. And on those moments, this door opens and 2 American police officers come out. I didn't know they were Americans. I couldn't even speak a word in English. They had a translator with them, and they were sort of staring at me down on the floor. And the translator said, they asked him, what are you doing on the streets? I said, I am from Serbia and I just need to go to the Red Cross. Translator didn't look happy because I was from Serbia and we were the enemy for the Kosovans. The American police officer said to him, tell her we can't take her to the Red Cross because it's too dangerous, but we can take her in our apartment, give her shelter tonight, and see what we do next tomorrow when it's daytime, because it's late. There was a choice I had to make, which frightened me, because I came from my own village where the soldiers were willing to, kill us. Heading into an apartment with 2 strangers, foreigners, not my culture, not my religion, nothing to do with what I know. I had no choice. I agreed. I got on this big jeep, and they drove off with me with the translator, and we got to their apartment after a short drive. And they set me up in their kitchen where it was like a sofa. And it was never turning into a bed, but just a sofa where I used as a bed. And they said, you are safe here. The next day came, they needed to go to work. And they said, you need to wait here for us. This is all, again, done through the translator. Whilst I was waiting for them, I decided to clean, cook, whatever I found in the fridge for them, to thank them that they gave me shelter. For me, I remember it so clearly, and almost like I wished I could stop time, or I could go back in time and just relive that moment of the respect they showed me, the love they showed me, the care they showed me. It showed me they were a clear proof that they could be outsiders, nothing to do. You don't have to relate to them. But when people are good, people are good. And they don't have to be from something that you actually resonate with. We had an unusual friendship. Unlike the most unlikely friendship was formed, and everywhere they went, they introduced me to the whole entire UN troops, their friends, and any parties, any gatherings, they had to keep me with them. And so everyone was there to protect me. Everyone got involved to protect this one girl from Serbia, because Red Cross was compromised by the locals. Because what I'm about to tell you next, it involved people that were connected to these gangs for human trafficking. So I, from Serbia, I had gone into Red Cross, because I've spoken to Peter and Brian since, my 2 police officers. They said if we had sent you then, you would have gone in split second. It was unsafe for you. You're from Serbia. And this one day I was quite bored. I'd finished all the chores around the flat, and I thought, this was on the ground floor. I thought to myself, if I just get a couple of pennies here and I walk outside of this door on the stand just over there, a few meters away, and got a magazine to read because I'm bored, then I'll be okay, right? Anybody would think that. So I made a mistake. I stand here and I know that was my own mistake, but I was 17, I was naive, and I didn't think it was that dangerous. On my moment getting this magazine, I had this big van, a people carrier kind of van, black. It just pulled in front of me. And I wanted to tell them off, to say, like, watch out, what are you doing? Like, on the pavement. And I was all about doing the right thing and being proper. And I didn't have time to say or think really that much. It was this thing that was pulled over my head. And they grabbed me over my armpits and shoved me in this van. And you know, Mo, sometimes you have those dreams. I'm sure people have had these when they jitter and they want to wake up from, because it's so bad. You know it's a dream and you just want to wake yourself up. I wanted to do that for myself because I really genuinely thought it was the worst dream I am having. But unfortunately, it was happening. And they took me to this abandoned place where I saw after where I was, and I remember the building. But when they put me in front of this guy, which was the boss, and I was on my knees, I was being held, the boss goes, "Oh, she's the one." Like, I had become so famous, I didn't even realize that I was so wanted by these people. He said, "Oh, flip her over, rape her, I want to watch." Now,
Oh my God.
a Muslim girl that's never had a boyfriend, never wanted to have a boyfriend. I was so focused on studying. I wanted to be a doctor, just like my dad. On her back, pinned down, adrenaline kicks in. I'm scared. I'm so scared. I'm scared because I wasn't scared of, I don't know how to explain it. I wasn't scared of the man. I was scared of the feeling, or how I might feel, or of something so precious, and to be exposed to something like that. And I screamed. I said, "Guys, I'm a virgin." And I screamed it at the top of my lungs. I don't know why I said it, but I think I was thinking that, so I said it. And the boss stopped the action. He said, "Stop, guys, we have stumbled across a huge cargo." So to them, girls, young people were a cargo. There were human trafficking gangs. They're still alive and still at large, that literally focused on selling the girls to the highest bidder and for prostitution, and then they took the organs. So nobody they ever took ever made it alive. No one that they've ever taken, I should rephrase this, had ever made it alive. I'm apparently the only survivor to have ever made it out of these guys. And it's a long story, but I'm going to skip, because so people understand the level of intensity, that it just gets worse and worse. This guy boss decides to groom me. The grooming process was the most vile experience I have ever experienced. If they had shot me dead, I would have maybe made peace with it. You know, you just have no choice. To have to watch sexual acts being done in front of you with his lover, gross things, and you are made to watch, so you are crying your eyes out. You don't want to watch. You feel sick. You're gonna be sick. You are sick, and you got these guns around you, and like, watch, learn, and you're there like taking this speedy lesson on potentially what I should be doing to the client that's going to buy me. It was sick. What got really twisted was, and this gets me every time, because to this day I feel a huge obligation and responsibility. They had girls come in, and they were being dragged in. They weren't even conscious. And the gang that took me, they would rape her and abuse her. I say a couple of them abuse them, and I was made to watch a girl that's unconscious being raped, and I just couldn't do anything about it. And they just kept saying, "Watch, learn, watch, learn." That stayed in my head, because I thought, would this have happened anyway? Would it have happened anyway? Or is it because of me? Maybe I shouldn't have been a virgin. Maybe these girls would have never had to go through that, to learn something that I needed to endure, something that I needed to learn. So I then can perform, or I can prepare myself what's coming. That messed up with my head for a long time. Because the guilt And yeah, I had nightmares, and I still do. It's a guilt that I would take to grave. It's I think the hardest thing sometimes is to forgive yourself for something it was never your fault. And it's easy to forgive others, I believe, because I know for a fact I have forgiven everyone that's ever wronged me, and including these people, because it was not for me to hold on to that kind of hate, and I had to take away their power over me. But I still am searching. I'm trying to do good in the world so I can find some forgiveness for myself, because I feel responsible, even though I know it wasn't my fault, but I just do. And I was very lucky on the day that they were supposed to ship me to the highest bidder. They had to cross the border to go to Albania that day, but the border was shut by the United Nations. And I count my blessings from that moment onwards, because it changed. It changed. One, it changed because it's like, speaking of chain of reaction, it's like you just, something happens and then you do something, and you always trigger for things to happen. So we got turned around, and on the way to the house where they were keeping me, this apartment, I decided to cause a scene every time we stopped, whether it was a restaurant, a coffee shop, whatever, wherever they stopped, I would cause a scene with the staff. As I would go to toilet, I would then go towards the staff, and the guard would then shove me around, hit me. So the staff realized, this girl, it's really not here willingly. She's clearly, something's not right. Whether the staff decided to make a few calls and raise a few alarms, I don't know. But by the time we reached this apartment, it was midnight. And I remember it clearly because the boss got a call, and we were standing on this hallway where the boss was taking this call on his little mobile phone, Nokia, you know, those really, I'm talking about 25 years, more than 25 years ago. And above him, there was a clock, like a round clock. And I saw the clock, and it was midnight. And that stayed with me, so significant. The boss goes, yes, talking to someone. He's like, right, boys. And he gets so angry. Get everything out. He said, you rape her, kill her, discard her body, do what we do with the bodies. He said, we need to get out of here because she is more trouble than she's worth it. Now I've gone from scared anyway from him to literally trembling, because death, as soon as you understand you are dying, no matter what you are going through, being like terminally ill or whatever it might be, I know for a fact, because I've seen death a few times approach me, you are never ready to die, no matter how hard, how painful the experience is. Life is precious. That thing, life that we hold here, is really precious. Even the poorest find it precious to let go of this lifetime. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm dying. And being a Muslim, I thought the least I can do is pray. I said to the guy, I started crying. I said, please don't do it. He had the gun, so I was like almost like holding his arms and like, please don't do this. I said, and if you're going to do it gently. We're both Muslim. Please, can I pray? Please allow me to pray. I was begging for this prayer. I don't think I've ever prayed again like I prayed that night. Mm-hmm. It was a prayer from the deepest, purest kind of my soul asking for forgiveness to God, because I wasn't ready to die, but I knew I was about to meet God. And I was really scared. I didn't know what it might feel like. He said, fine, you pray. He said, I'll use the toilet, and then you know what's happening. Next to the telly, there was a TV in the living room and a glass door on the left-hand side here. There was a little sort of corner there that I thought, if I just go there, it's possibly clean enough for me to pray. I went onto stage there. I didn't even pray properly like we do. I just immediately went onto my knees, head on the floor. And the thoughts through my head is, if only I could have made it out to tell my mom and dad that I'm about to die, so they know I'm dying. I know it doesn't make sense when I say it. It's twisted. It's like, well, how could you make it out? And then you're dying anyway, but how are you coming back to this? It didn't make sense. But this is my thought process. If only I could just send a message to them that I'm about to die, so they don't wonder for the rest of their lives where I've gone or if I abandoned them. And I said, God, I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry what's happening. And on those moments, Mo, I heard, speaking of magic and the power of God or the prayer or meditation for I don't care what you believe in, but when you focus, when you really fully focus and you delete all this noise around you and you become that priority, like I'm saying, people don't take priority for themselves. Be that priority for yourself. Love yourself. I was loving myself on Sajda. I was forgiving myself in a sense that I can't tell my parents, but God, please forgive me because I let everybody down. Wow. And I was loving myself and loving in a sense that thank you for all that you've given me so far. I was only 17. I was making peace with it. I heard this cling on the table and I turned around and I thought, let me see, what is this cling? And it was keys on the table and the gun. I said, you know what? In my head, what do I do? We're not supposed to break the prayer. What do I do? And God spoke to me. God has never revealed to me like that night. In fact, most recently, something he proved to me, and I'm not even going to go there, but he really does answer when you truly understand it. You're very specific of what you want. I said, what do I do? And I had this kind of interpretation in my head saying, take the keys. Not the gun, just take the keys. I'm so sorry. It's like I'm breaking the prayer. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Can you imagine all this thought is going through my head? I took the keys and I thought, okay, if I just try to open this door, then maybe I'll just make it out. So I opened the first door. It was 2 doors, the wooden door from the inside and the metal door from the outside, like a rails, like in prisons. When I started opening the second door, because it opens the opposite direction, what I know now, I've learned my lesson on the spot, I was like fiddling with it. And then all of a sudden it opened and I sort of went flying forward because the door opened towards the front. I just like legged it down the stairs from the 4th floor. I was missing all the steps. I think God gave me wings. I was just going like this. And as I reached the front door, he was right behind me. I could feel his breath. I could hear everything about him. He was there. He punched me so hard that I went flying onto the main road. And luckily it wasn't busy because it was after midnight and quiet. But that allowed me, that big punch allowed me to sort of fall far away from him, but also sort of twist myself in a position where I could see there is life, other people around. And to my very big luck, it was a police officer, Italian, had just finished his shift. He was parking his Jeep, and I just screamed. I didn't know he was a police officer, but I screamed. He ran towards me to see what was happening, and my guy that was about to kill me, he was shooting at the police officer. And the police officer obviously shooting at him. I've got these 2 guys shooting at each other, and I'm just crawling towards the police officer. As soon as I reached him within a meter, he grabbed me and put me behind his car, immediately opened his door to protect us. And he reached in to get the walkie-talkie. He called units that were still at work, and within seconds we were surrounded. I was so in distress and upset and hysterical. They decided to take me to the police station. They said, you've got to give us the interview because we need to know names and we need to know who these people are. I remembered everything, all the names. They weren't hiding anything from me. At the end of my interview, I was exhausted of telling this story. Just, every time it gets me because it was traumatizing. The guy said, this police officer, Albanian from Kosovo, he said, can I hug you? It was my dad's age. I said, don't touch me. He started crying, and I remember his face. He said, I just want to thank you for surviving to tell us, to give us these names, because we have been trying to bring them down. We don't have witnesses. So you need to appear in court and potentially Hague. I'm thinking, I'm out of here. I can't wait to just reunite with Peter and Brian and go to war where my parents are and die by the bullets and die by the soldiers there, by my own people. I got reunited with Brian and Peter, and they were really devastated. It was 3:00 in the morning by the time we reached, and I've done the interview. The next day, obviously, they looked after me that 3 hours of that evening, and the next day we said goodbye. Brian and Peter were devastated. I got on the bus, headed back, crossed the borders again illegally into Serbia, only to find my mum and dad hiding in the basement. And they immediately said, you shouldn't have come back. My mum was like, you shouldn't have come back. I'm like, Mom, I have so much to tell you. I was so happy to see them. All I wanted to do is hug them. She was like, no, you go away. You can't be here. I'm like, Mom, what's the problem? The problem was that I had crossed borders and nobody was supposed to leave. And so we were being watched, and the soldiers had already seen me cross borders coming in. And so within minutes of me getting into my parents' garden, we've got this big truck of soldiers comes in, and they drag me into the van, and my dad is crying with my mum in the garden. I said, listen, please, I said, I'll just explain to them what had happened. At least for me was this sense of relief that I didn't have that obligation. Now they are taking me. My parents can see this. The obligation of me sending that message to them to say, hey, this is what's happening to me, it was non-existent because they can see what's happening. And I genuinely thought it was going to be a very straightforward interrogation. Why did you cross borders? That kind of stuff. What are you doing? Doing this? What's your deal? But yet, all this experience in Kosovo, I realized I was still naive. I was still being molded by the craziness that was happening. We reached this. The soldiers with me reached this building in the mountains. It was an abandoned building, and there was someone a bit more higher than them waiting for me to interrogate me. And I sat at the table like this, like I am with you today, a really bright light, and he's standing up asking me questions, and I'm telling him everything that's happened. Soldiers are standing around me. They're beating me up. Tell the truth. I said, I'm telling the truth. We don't believe you. You're a spy. What did you do in Kosovo? What is going on? You're crossing borders. They beated me up so badly, I was unrecognizable. They broke my nose. They dislocated my jaw from just being punched. And they ripped my ear. My ear doesn't have any flexibility. It's been reconstructed because it was also infected from being beaten up and untreated. I was split. And amongst all the beating up and dislocating my back, they decided to brand me on my calf. Supposedly I would tell the truth, which I had told them a number of times, because nobody would be, even the strongest person in the world wouldn't be able to handle that kind of investigation without cracking. I only stuck to the truth. I was telling them the truth. And when they put me on the floor facing down and I could feel something hot going towards my legs, they were holding me down. When the heat really collided with my skin, the pain was so excruciating that I blacked out. I fainted. I just don't remember what happened after that, until I then wake up in a small room, which was as tall as I am, and I'm 5'7", just a bit taller. When I lie down, I could almost feel the edges, and then I could feel the front and the back. When I woke up, I couldn't see very much, and I thought it was just the darkness because I was so swollen and messed up. But I actually was in a dark room with no window, and it was just the door that was I could go in and out of. I started being frantic and hysterical because I felt really claustrophobic, and I thought, I'm buried alive. And I thought, this is it. I'm dying here. And I found the blanket that was on the floor. It was already a really nasty blanket. The smell in there was just so strong and rotten and vile. I don't know what had happened in there, but I was about to happen in there. And I really started crying, and I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die here, because it's like, it's a grave, surely. I can't see anything. Eventually I calmed myself down because I kept drifting on and off because this pain on my calf was really painful. The injuries were so painful. So I went from being numb and swollen to literally really feeling this outcome of these injuries. And soon after that, the soldiers kept coming in. And I remember the first time they raped me was quite soon. Something I fought so hard of protecting. Psychologically, everything was being taken away from me. The innocence, the good that I had in me, everything was being erased because I got shown so much cruelty. And then the one thing that I was born with, which was so innocent, got taken away in such monstrous acts. I flipped. I think I lost my mind. In that room, I lost my mind. I think I did. Because it turned from like what I thought it would be days and into 6 months of solitary confinement, of daily, multiple times a day being raped. And sorry I broke down, everybody. It's just, I can handle this, I've become very good at handling, but doesn't mean it ever goes away. It doesn't go away. But if I was not to be emotional, you'd think I'm a robot, and I'm not. And I know Mo deals with robots, and he's the clever one. But no, I would like to now focus on what it really taught me, because I think this is where people could really think what was going through my mind.
How did you get out?
My dad rescued me. After 6 months of banging hands and trying to find me, my dad eventually found me with this police officer that helped him, Serbian police officer. He had gone and spoken to the army and said, "You've taken a girl. Where is she? Is she in your premises?" They said, "It's nothing to do with us, but the army that the Serbian government recruited during the war, it was 2 armies. It was the actual army, legit, and just like, you had to kill at war, whatever they had to do. But then was these recruits from prisons where there were the killers, the rapists, the burglars, you name it, the most vicious people you could come across, and they had guns and they had power. So they were put in power. These were the guys that took me, and the way we knew the difference was that they wore trainers, white trainers. So it was very unusual to see army guys dressed up in full uniform and then trainers and boots. And that's how we learned that they were different. And this has been like, those guys were vicious. They killed so many people and did so much damage to a lot of people. Injustice. It happened even after the war. They were in power for a long time. So the real army gave the police officer roughly where I was being held, but they said, "We can't interfere. So whatever you guys decide to do, it's your job." The police officer said to my dad, "If we can get some money, you can go bribe them, see if you can get her at home for 24 hours, and then we'll rescue her. We'll organize an escape for her outside of the country." And my dad was poor. He didn't have much. My uncle had died by then, the one that saved us. And my dad had to ask relatives to gather some money just to try and see if this bribing would work for me. They found me, and the day that I was reunited with my dad, I didn't believe it. My dad couldn't believe his eyes how skinny I'd gotten because I was starving. I didn't want to live. It was a lot of stuff happening with me psychologically. And so I got reunited. He grabbed me, he covered me up, got in the car. The light outside was so blinding for me because I hadn't seen real light for 6 months. And got home, he dressed my wounds. My mum washed me. He had to stitch a lot of stuff and give me antibiotics. I was a mess, a real mess. And I fell asleep on my mum's lap. And I just wanted, I think, really, I genuinely think that was the moment of me to have gone peacefully, just to have drifted off into the darkness and said my goodbyes, because there was nothing there to keep me going. I was exhausted. I was a monster myself. I was treated like one, so I became one. I didn't want to live anymore. My dad whispered to my mum, he said, it's time, and the dark has come. You know, it was dark outside. I said, what's going on, guys? Why are you whispering? He said, oh, it's time. We are going. Say goodbye to your mom. I said, Dad, and I grabbed his hand. I said, please let me be, because I'm tired. Can you not see who have I become? He said, no, because I'm a parent. I'm a dad. My job is to keep you safe. I'm going to do everything until the last moment to save your life. He said, even with us dying, because as we left, when he rescued me, he said, you don't bring her within 24 hours, you know, you're dead. And my dad said, sure, I'll bring her back. So I said goodbye to my mom. It was like the most longest goodbye. It was that longing, knowing that you'd never see that person again. It was that deep sort of goodbye. And we were both crying. My mom was heartbroken, but she was trying to hold it together. And then I walked with my dad slowly. I was just limping away. I was a mess. My back was in pain, slip disc, and I was skin and bones. I was malnourished. And we reached this sort of highway that sort of is near the where we lived. It's almost in the fields where my parents' house is. And it was this big, huge truck waiting. And my dad said, go in, you'll be safe. He doesn't speak our language, but he has instructions. Oh my God, Mo, I looked at him and it's another man. In my eyes, it's, oh my God, it's another man.
Yeah.
What next? How worse is gonna get? I knew whatever happens next, I was prepared to just like give in. Dad, not dad, whatever. I just wanted my dad's wish to come true, so I got away. I said goodbye, what I thought it would be the last goodbye, broke down, the truck pulled away, and we got separated for many years. We didn't know where we were, whether I made it, whether they made it. It was war zone. And I kept reflecting back to the time. People ask me what was going on through that darkest time in 6 months in solitary confinement. If I had not learned by accident to meditate and detach my feelings from my physical experience, I think I would still be living with a lot of hate, and I would be a pretty nasty person, very dangerous one as well, because it triggers your deepest evil and monstrous kind of feeling, because we possess both. That's why people can be both. It just depends how they triggered over time. That's why they say, what happened to them, or how come they like that? Something must have triggered them, as little as from the moment they are born. And so when they would come in that room and abuse me, sexually abuse me especially, I learned that, and it happened just by accident actually, whilst they were raping me, for some reason, I was fed up of being so manhandled in such way and fighting that I didn't want to fight anymore. So I was staring at this dark ceiling, singing in my head, thinking of Nelson Mandela that inspired my whole life, and the way he was so facing his injustice and what a man he was, and the way for what he stood. And because the way my parents were for human rights, so I had this ingrained in me. I was so inspired by this kind of people. I wanted everyone to have equal rights. I thought, why is it the world is so unbalanced. So I would stare at the ceiling and think of these thoughts. And I realized if I was thinking of good stuff, I wasn't feeling the bad stuff so much what was happening. I was detaching. And then I went from that to literally, instead of me like fighting them, I was just watching them, almost like an out-of-body experience, thinking, what happened to these kids? They must have been kids one day. And now they're these men that are finding joy and pleasure raping a girl that is underage, or I was 18 by then, or however old I was. So they're finding pleasure of abusing someone. What happened to these people? I felt sorry for them. So I was almost trying to become this saint in the room and to say, like, I feel sorry for you. Could I help you somehow? It was a weird way of thinking, but it helped me refrain my mind that I was losing, that little sanity I had left. It helped me hold on to it, and it helped me hold on to the goodness I was born with and I was raised with and I was engraved in me from get-go with my parents, regardless of how poor we were. So when I came to the UK as a political asylum seeker child, that truck smuggled me into the UK. I was on a suicidal watch. I didn't want to live because of post-traumatic depression and things that I couldn't control. If it wasn't the love that I had for my parents and the love that I then had for myself, because I knew nobody else could respect me more than I could respect myself, I probably wouldn't have made it as far as I have. So I had to start with little things like just changing by positive thinking and choosing to go to college, wanting to learn the language, wanting to study, wanting to do exercise, wanting to eat healthy, although I have sugar in my coffee, don't judge me. But it's all about the choices that I made ever since. And sometimes they were not so good, and sometimes they were really good. But then again, you know, we say God sends people your way, and it's aligned. It's just a matter of time. If we forced this interview sooner, it wouldn't have happened, and it didn't happen. But when it was meant to happen, it just rejoined us, because you were not in the right, maybe, I didn't know what was going on with you, but maybe you were not at the right time to have this conversation with me. Neither were your viewers. So this is the right time that we are sharing it. So for me, it was about meeting the right people. Like my mentor Gilles came along. He then helped me heal with meditation, etc., and helped me in business. He saw my future before I did. It's his idea to have had this book. He said, you need to write a book. You need to raise awareness. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You're amazing. He taught me how to love myself, because I saw the way he loved himself and his family, and how much that love that he had and respect for himself, how much I was gravitating towards.
Did you ever meet any of those people again? Your friend soldiers, the Italian soldier, any of the
I have met Peter. Peter came to London within a year or two after I made it out. My uncle that was living in London, he knew the whole truth, and he was a psychiatrist. Somehow through him, and because he had a landline, we managed to find, I knew their full names and their station number, so my uncle managed to connect with them. Brian and I haven't reunited yet. We were supposed to in 2020 when COVID hit. I ride bikes, and I said to Brian, I want to reunite with you. I miss you greatly, and I love that guy so much. And feeling is mutual in that sense from both of them. I wanted to go see him and see his family in Alabama, but COVID hit, so maybe I'm saving it for the documentary or something when we reunite. But Peter came, and Peter always was very supportive. He had children, so he was treating me like his child. Brian didn't have kids at that time, and I would really have loved to have met Brian since. It's been a long time.
It's hard to keep faith in humanity when you tell stories like this. So to me, I advocate to the world that everyone is good. This is how you started the conversation. There is good in everyone. And you met in this experience, you meet those two soldiers at the beginning who had every possibility to abuse you, but then they protect you and they're kind and they're generous. And you're this beautiful 17-year-old who has no protection whatsoever, but somehow their humanity makes them behave in a way that protects you. And then you meet all of those other samples of monsters. And for some strange reason, you say that they are monsters because of their childhood. But they're around us, they're among us. They are, they are walking the streets of Gaza, they're walking the streets of Ukraine, they are, in every conflict that's ever happened. When humanity somehow decides, okay, this is a war zone, so there are no rules, and all of the worst of what makes us human surfaces. And I don't know how you can start our conversation by saying, I see the good in everyone, because I can't. I just can't. Sorry.
It's okay. I recognize evil completely. I'm with you there. I've lost sleep over seeing innocent people. One, before the war started, seeing them being trafficked. When Syrian children went through Serbia, I was based in Singapore, and I got a call from the News of the World or something. I can't remember now. It's a while back, and they said they went through Serbia. They were all with families and stuff, but we have hundreds of thousands of children gone missing. Do you think it could be the same people? I didn't hesitate to say, or let me think about it. I said 100%. Which borders? I said these borders. I said 100%, because I can see good. What I mean with the good is people's shape. I'm not saying what happened to me, they are good people, but I just like to go back to seeing that they were born pure and something happened to them, triggered them. You have a choice to make. I could have easily become just as bad as they are, become abusive or really quite nasty person, right? But I made that choice. And I don't know how people see me. Maybe sometimes my kindness irritates some people's demons. I don't know. But because I got shown so much cruelty, not everybody is entitled or is not everybody is sent in the planet Earth to do the same job. And I've taken it upon myself to show, to demonstrate peace, to demonstrate love and kindness. I work with people day in and day out. I coach on L&D, so presentation skills, public speaking. Everybody has something. And I tell a little bit of my story just to demonstrate storytelling when we're presenting. And I find that even those people that have got it all good and they say, you've made me think of something, I was really nasty to someone or something. So even the small things, if you can just channel people to think more positively and more kindly. I see good in everyone. It doesn't mean I don't see evil.
I think that's a more balanced view. I think the truth, however, is that you're absolutely spot on. No one's born that way. No. When you're told a story that tells you these are the enemies, or that there is a reason to accept treating them that way, or that it is okay for some reason or the other, and you're stupid enough to believe that story when you're subjected to cruelty, and you're inhuman enough to turn it on another. And I think that the real challenge, in all honesty, is how do people follow your path, right? How do people I had a friend of mine who was actually in the same war. At the time, he was in his 30s, if I remember correctly. And I asked him, and I said, how could you carry a gun? And he said, I had absolutely no choice.
Yeah.
I had absolutely no choice. He said, at the beginning, I said, I'm not part of this. And then overnight, there was a line drawn in one street where people said, if you're on this side, you're with us. If you're on the other side, you're with the others. And if you're with the others on this side, we will kill you. And so we had to move. And then another day, someone showed up at the door and gave me a gun and said, if you're on this side, you have to fight.
Yeah.
And if you don't fight, we will kill your family.
Completely.
And it is madness. It's madness. And I really am so sorry, Lurata, to have you tell the story. But we're going through times now where so many people are made to live through this. And I think people need to understand that beyond the news and the clips that we see on, social media, this is the reality of what people go through when we let this monster side of humanity happen. I think it's important for everyone to not look at the stats of those many people killed and those many bombs dropped and those many. We are letting humans become animals. This is what happens when the rule of law, when the ethics of humanity disappear. And I really don't know how to say it any other way. If you would accept for your daughter to go through what Lurata has gone through, then be okay with what's happening in the world. Whichever ethnicity, whichever background, whatever they filled your head with, no one should ever be treated this way. No one ever should be used this way.
Well said, Mo. I think people should really think this. Over times, we have been divided by all sorts of stuff, gender, politics, whatever, nationality, religion. If you're in doubt which side you should go, if you should be that judgmental, and you don't know, oh, should I take this side or that side, that in itself shows that you are still deciding. If you already decided which side you take, then you should stop yourself and say, why have I decided this way? Because in any healthy human mind, I don't care what religious purposes you have or nationality, if you, in my eyes, because I think good exists in everyone, in everything. If you don't stand with the innocent, you, for me, need to really rethink the way you think and what you believe. Because I don't have much respect for people that don't stand with the innocent. Innocent meaning children, women that don't have guns, they can't protect themselves. And why we are so primitive. I think we were more advanced when we lived when there was no cars and people were on horses. When they had a war, they went into the fields and men fought. They might recruited young boys to fight, but they went onto a field to fight.
Yes.
And if you won the war, then you took over their city and you treated their families as part of you. You made sure they will follow you. You didn't go and kill them. I mean, history has shown this. But now we decide we are so driven by greed and power, because I can tell you one thing. War brings nothing but poverty and pain.
To most, other than a few that make shitloads of money selling guns and winning in politics. And I think the reality of our humanity today is that all of us are so stupid that we get into the details and forget that there are hundreds of thousands, even millions of people in our world today going through what you have gone through. And I don't undermine your story at all. I don't undermine it at all. But imagine if every monster in the world suddenly, because we let it happen, had a field where they can do this. I want to talk about how you became this angel. I really can't even imagine, because I know you.
You don't need to know people all your lives to know them, Mo. I think we are born with such amazing ability that we have suppressed over time, and that's energy. We know. Our gut feeling is something that you say, oh, just my gut feeling. Please listen to your gut feeling because it's telling you. We just know.
First of all, how did you overcome the pain? How did you allow yourself to go on with life, to get married, to have children, to put that past behind you and decide I want to move forward and have a life?
Something came to me. I realized that I was playing a victim even when I wasn't anymore. When I was taken, I was the victim for sure. And I was playing what I was. I was victimized completely. I come to the UK, I got given, chance to study, to get on my feet again. I got given all the tools that I needed from the doctor, psychiatrist, colleges, whatever I needed, it was there, provided. Thankfully, I'm very grateful for the British government, what they did for me. Specifically, I can speak. And so it was a choice that I had to make. And when it was made, when I was sitting with my psychiatrist, and I understand they can't really get involved emotionally, but she kept saying, I understand, to me. And I couldn't speak with her in English. It had to be through translator. I said, well, how can she understand? Because I don't think she's been at war. And so I think I was missing the point that people can go through anything. As long as it's pain and struggle, they can relate to that, to the struggle, rather than the actual experience.
Yes.
And so I needed to understand. I went on this journey to understand how people could understand me. So I became from a victim to a survivor. I decided to see myself as this survivor. And I thought, if being a victim is really not a choice, but being survivor is my choice. And then this sentence extended to being a thriver, because at the moment I knew the difference. I was reading Tony Robbins' book as well at one point, and he talks about depression, and for that I'm really grateful. I love that particular book that I have still at home. And he goes that depression is a state of mind. It's not a condition. It's not an illness. And I had to reread that again and reread. And I'm like, what does he mean with this? You have the power to change that. Change your thoughts, you change the outcome. And he kept repeating this. And I started repeating it in my day-to-day. Like, okay, so I woke up, I'm feeling really bad. Like, I've had a bad night, lots of nightmares. What makes me feel good? I realized music. What else makes me feel good? Going for a run. What else was making me feel good? Typing my memories away or writing them down. So I realized that I had a choice to make. You either remain a victim for the rest of your life, regardless of what's happened to you, or you become a survivor and a thriver. As a result of me changing that mindset, I then went on to wanting to help others, just like my dad. He was a doctor. I wanted to be like him, to help people as well. I thought, how can I help people? And one day in this gym, I was doing my cross trainer. A trainer approaches me and he goes, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to build muscle? Muscle, weight. And I'm thinking, why is he asking me these questions? I was just like on the cross trainer. I said, no. He said, well, why are you doing this? I said, it's making me feel good. I literally, and I remember it was in Elscourt, a gym just outside of Elscourt Tube Station. I forgot the name now, just on the right-hand side. And he said, what? That's nonsense. What are you talking about? And here I am, I'm thinking, what does he not get? It's making me feel good. And then I had this idea. I thought, if I become a personal trainer one day, I want to show people that by feeling good, changes make, and not the other way around. You don't make changes to feel good. You feel good, and then the change will happen. Honestly, Mari, when you put your energy to universe, to God, and say, this is what I want to do for the greater good. No, don't be selfish. Do things that, yes, enhances you, but for the greater good. Things happen. Magic happen for me.
That's the bottom line. Then life itself helps you. You have the entire army of being itself behind you. This is the whole idea, isn't it?
I love it. Honestly, I absolutely loved it. And that was the turning point. Of course, I became a personal trainer. I help people, and it's all about feeling good. I mean, people were running marathons. They never thought they would be able to. People were making changes. They were happy at home. I was training the families, the kids, the dad. The wives were hiring me, like, come, only you can do this. I'm like, me? And I was, look, I was still, very young, very into this world in the UK. My English wasn't good. I was training people that had their own pool, that had their own sauna, many Lamborghinis and whatever outside. I learned a lot of lesson. This client trusted me. They didn't know my story. I was getting them results because they were feeling good. They were getting results for themselves. I was trustworthy and I was respectful and consistent. So they opened up to me. And when they opened up to me, I realized that no matter how wealthy people were, that's when I go back to the beginning. People were not being kind to themselves. So it was that I needed to share that. That's why then I went on the journey of becoming an author and changing my career to help people find that self-worth that they deserve.
Do you find joy in life now?
I love life every day. Honestly, no matter how it starts, I always make it amazing. I'm like, forget that. It's not happening this way.
Yeah, I know.
Because I really know you are in charge of your life. And things thrown your way, as long as you don't let it affect you. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. People think that you just wake up and everybody wants a fast pill to fix their problems. It doesn't work that way.
When you really think about it, it's. I think a lot of people stuck in traffic today should always remind themselves and say, at least I'm not in Lurata's solitary confinement, right? If you're not in that, then you're okay, honestly, I have to end with a very important question. People who go through so much pain, natural disaster, trauma, abuse by others, and so on, normally drop God altogether. They go like, how could there be a God? How could there be a God if God would let me suffer all of this? What do you say to that? Why do you think God let that happen to you?
I always ask these questions, but I've even asked it myself, but then I don't know if that's chosen by God, because I believe there is evil as well. So we've got, a lot of religions believe in the evil angels and stuff. And obviously the monsters live in us, in the human. So not everybody can be controlled. And I know there's so much injustice. It's a very big question for me to answer, but because he has shown me the way, he's been there when I needed him. I know that he exists, and I don't think it's his choice for us to go through suffering. But if we never suffered, if university was that easy, everybody would be, everybody will be going through, like, becoming the top. It's difficult going through university through studies. So life in itself is a university. And without obstacles, if we knew what's happening tomorrow and it's all good, it's not worth even trying, because you just wake up and it's done.
You think this is, the suffering is the school that we have to go through?
It's a learning process for me. I think it's, for example, if you were to think if there was to be many lifetimes, and maybe, let's just say, I'm just taking as an example. I don't know if I believe this, but as an example, if I had lived many lifetimes and I haven't learned the lesson, or my soul needed to learn this, I thank God he sent me everything, because, oh my God, I would be so scared to know who I would be now if I hadn't gone through it. And I've gone through it, and I'm like so grateful. Can you imagine to be grateful of the experience you had, because it's made me who I am, and I love who I am.
That's why I love her, everyone. Can I just tell you something? Please listen. You know those girls that were raped in front of you, and that you could never forgive yourself for being the reason why they were raped? Just like you went through your pain to become the person that you are, was part of their journey to become the people that they now are. It wasn't for you at all. This was not about you. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
The complexity of life that we live, the complexity of this multi-threaded game that we live, is that each of us has a story and each of us has a track. We cross during those stories. So your story overlaps mine several times. My story overlaps yours, but also overlaps others, right? But it's still my story.
Yeah.
It's still my university. Okay? And even though, Ali, my son's story overlaps mine where he leaves and I stay, and him leaving makes me start what I did in life and sort of completely changes my life. His departure affects my decisions in the future, but I didn't affect his departure. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Somehow, when those victims were subjected to what they were subjected to, you being present there would make you think that it's because of you. It wasn't. It's because of them. It's their story. And believe it or not, that monster that did it, it was their story. And, when people ask me the same question about God, I say, I'm intrigued that humans can be so evil.
Yeah.
And yet you blame God. In a very interesting way. This is, if you disconnect from the physical, because the physical is all a purification for the non-physical, for your soul, for your spirit.
Yeah.
Those horrible physical experiences that we go through, struggling through the world that we go through here on earth, are the choices of those souls that need to purify. Yeah. At the end of it, when we all disconnect from our bodies, it's all the same for the spirit. It's just that those very conflicted stories, they have to overlap somehow. And when I really think deeply about it, I somehow say, because of course, it now really fades. But for a long time, I felt that the pain of losing a child is the worst pain you can ever feel, until I meet you and I realize there are worse pains. Even though when I had Gabor Mate here on the show recently, he basically said, don't compare anyone's trauma. Everyone's trauma is their worst trauma. It's the lesson that they need. But when you really look deeply at your own story, at my own story, and where it got us, and that it just got us to meet now and connect.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely worth.
I agree with what you said, Mo, and I think sometimes what's made me think about this when you're saying comparing the traumas is that when you go to the doctor, they usually ask you from 1 to 10, what's your headache or whatever. And
pain threshold. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, doctor, I can handle a lot of pain.
I can handle a lot of pain.
So what mine is, maybe it's not something that if I told you it's like 7, for you might be 10. So when people say, oh, I can't compare to you because you've been through a lot, and my story, I always say, look, please don't ever compare. Trauma is trauma. Pain is pain. Experiences, it can't be measured. Some things just can't be measured in life. It is what it is. For that person, that even if you think it's a little trauma in comparison to some, for them, is it big enough? Because that's what they've been exposed to. That's what they needed to learn from it. And we appreciate it. We shouldn't wish it upon them to go through what we've been through so they can learn. It's just doesn't work like that.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
As I always say, my favorite episodes are the ones I cut short.
Yeah.
You're
cutting me.
I think people have to, I think listeners should probably pause and listen again. If you guys are going through a tough time, I think this story will tell you that it's okay. If you think that things are not going to turn around and become better, then this angel sitting in front of you is proof that it does. And if you're so self-centered and focused on what's going wrong for yourself, I think the compassion that Lurata showed today in terms of really trying to make a difference to others is probably the lesson. That we're not here to be traveling this journey on our own. I can't wait to see you again. Don't let it be 6 weeks to this time, okay?
Yeah, I'm moving to Dubai, everybody.
That's a
Maybe it's
very
the
good
only
idea.
way.
That's a very good idea. Or when I'm back here in London next time, coffee's on me. You're an amazing, amazing human being.
Thank you so
I
much.
truly and honestly am grateful that you're able to so vulnerably share and open everyone's eyes. And I hope that in fairness, the rest of your life will always be fair, full of joy and connection, and only the best people will show your way.
Thank you.
For all of you listening, I don't even know if I want to close on this episode. I think you need to reflect on your own life. But I will say openly, no one, absolutely no one should ever be going through this. Absolutely no one should be going through this. I think you should stand up. I think you should, whatever your ethnicity, whatever your background, whatever political bullshit they put in your head, no one should ever go through this. No innocent person should suffer this way. I love you all for listening, and I will see you next time.